Principal stores records of living wills.
Yeah, Brenda Grant was artificially fed for nearly 2 years after a severe stroke left her unable to communicate. This was despite making a written statement to say it wasn't what she wanted. The trust misfiled the will and her family were unaware that it actually existed at all.
Michele Paduano has been to meet her family.
Sitting at home watching the family album is tinged with sadness for Tracy Barker. She didn't know that her mum, Brenda Grant, had made a living will, and that's why she was trying to pull out feeding tubes following a catastrophic stroke. Unable to talk, walk or swallow, Brenda had a peg put into her stomach to feed her and was kept alive for nearly 2 years.
I didn't want my mum to die. Nobody wants their mum to die. But my mum died the day she had that stroke because she was never ever capable of doing anything that she did before when she had that stroke. And I know she would not have wanted to live like she was.
For the lawyers representing the family, the case was a conundrum. Although Brenda had been wronged, how much compensation should there be for keeping someone alive?
They force-fed her with feeding tube, they operated on her so that she could have nutrition provided directly into her intestines, all of which was against her wishes. The advance directive is quite clear. It says that she feared the degradation and the embarrassment of that sort of scenario more than she feared death itself.
George Eliot Hospital in Nuneaton has accepted that it failed to store the living will in a way that it could easily be found. It's apologised and paid £45,000. It's now registering living wills on the front page of patient notes.
We need it out to all hospitals. All hospitals should be doing this because people are going to live longer.
Michele Paduano, BBC News.
Well, we've just seen Tracy Barker there, who now joins us to pick up some of those points as well. I'm also going to speak to Eloise Power, who's a barrister who specialises in medical law, and try and get to the bottom of exactly what a living will is and what the sort of rights and wrongs around it are. But Tracy, thank you so much for coming on to talk about this for us this morning. I mean, we heard you explain some of the story there, but at what point did you become aware that your mum had this will in place, but that nobody seemed to know about?
We became aware of it in about May before she died, so it was like 20 months probably into a treatment. The nursing home found it and made me aware of it, and I made her GP aware of it, who then followed it through.
And up until that point, you had no idea of what your mum's wishes were?
No. We thought that she would have done something like this, and we did fight when they first wanted to put the peg in, not to have the peg put in, but the hospital just kept saying that if she hadn't got a living will, they couldn't do anything other than treat her. But she hadn't got it.
Oh, gosh. I mean, it's such a thing to have gone through. Let's just talk a bit about the sort of legal implications. Eloise, thanks for joining us. Eloise Power. And just explain, a living will is what a statement of your kind of wishes, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. A living will is properly known as an advance decision, and it's a legally valid document under the Mental Capacity Act. The idea behind a living will is that you make a decision to refuse specific kinds of medical treatment at a time when you have capacity, so in other words, when you're of sound mind. That decision then comes into effect in the future if and when you come to lack capacity. And some practical examples of the kinds of medical treatment that people might wish to refuse include resuscitation. They include artificial hydration and nutrition, as in the case of Brenda Grant that we've just talked about, and they also include treatment that people might have religious objections to, such as blood transfusions in some cases. And it's important to be aware that as the law stands at present, living wills can only enable you to refuse treatment. You can't demand particular treatments under a living will. You don't need a solicitor to make a living will. You can make one yourself. There are freely downloadable forms from organisations such as Compassion in Dying. The legal requirements are that they have to be in writing, they have to be signed, and they have to be witnessed.
That's really interesting and important clarification on that issue. I mean, I'm sure you know all this now,
Yes.
Tracy. I mean,
Yeah.
investigate for yourself. And you have successfully sued the hospital. I know it's not about money in any way, shape or form for you, but does that in some way, has that helped your family? How do you sort of communicate about it now?
No, what's more important to me is the fact that the hospital have admitted the liability and that they've apologised and that they've also changed their process. And that is the most important thing to me.
So no one has to go through again what you've been through?
Well, hopefully not, no. So I just want, in this day of technology, why it can't just be on a computer instead of tucked away in notes.
And Eloise, can I just, before we go on, I just want to ask you, so that was the thing for you, you didn't know about this, did you? So what should people, if they're thinking about making living wills, how do they make sure that their relatives and all the important people that need to know do know?
Well, first of all, I think Brenda Grant's case raises a really important policy issue. There should be a national database or register of living wills akin to the National Organ Donation Register. And I think this would be of profound importance both for doctors working on the ground, for families that have to go through what Brenda Grant's family have had to go through, and also it would hopefully increase uptake of living wills. At present, only 5% of adults in the UK have a living will, and looking at the bigger picture, we do need to encourage our elderly population to confront the challenges of later life. Now, on a practical level, if people have already made a living will, what can they do? I'd advise people to do 3 things. First of all, ensure that your doctors know about it. Ask your GP to put it in the GP records. Ask your hospital doctors to put it in the hospital records. Second, tell your loved ones, tell your family, tell your friends. Give them a copy of the living will, preferably give it to more than one person. Third, if you have a solicitor, give your solicitor a copy of the living will as well.
Extremely good advice. Eloise Power, thank you very much indeed. Tracy, thank you.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's at 8:40.